What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Predicting the NFL with Mickey G. And right now we have a guest. We have the Boo. Hello, Boo Girl. Yes, say hello. But let's not get distracted by our guest here. Let's talk about things. Last week we went 10-6, which is our worst of the year so far, but still in that double-digit 10-win area. My goodness, what am I doing? We've gotten one less correct each week, which is not ideal. But this is the only time ever we have gone 3 weeks to start the season with that 10-plus wins. So we are off to a good start here. We're looking good, and that's what's important. Now, hopefully the trend does not continue, and this week we go 9-7. That would be a bummer. So we got our game of the week incorrect. The Ravens' defense is a lot worse than we all originally thought, and Henry continues to have the fumble problem, so he needs to figure that out. The upset was also incorrect, and it should have been correct. There was a lot of games that went complete opposite directions of what everyone expected, and the same thing goes for halftime. There were, I think, 3 blocked kicks this week, which is insane. I don't know what's going on with the whole special teams situation on all these teams, but it's struggling a little bit. Rams were up big, and then they just blew it, and then they had multiple opportunities to win the game on field goals, and they missed both of them, one of which got blocked and returned for a touchdown. So lots of insanity going on there. I was very excited. I thought I knew so much ball, and then they let me down. Crapfest was also incorrect. Steelers, Patriots, it was a close one, and it probably should have gone in the direction of New England if they didn't have 5 turnovers, which gave it away to the Steelers. A Jersey team, we had a bit of a shocker. The Packers decided to lose to the Browns. They were winning the whole game and then allowed 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter and lost. And there was another missed field goal, I believe it was blocked as well, that they lost on. What should have been a game-winning field goal got blocked, and then Browns took it the other way and ended up getting their own 3 points off of it. My pick was wrong, and team also lost, and that means that we are unfortunately still 0-4 in our Jersey game picks for week 3 all time. So that is definitely a bummer. So now total on the season is 33-15, 1-2 in games of the week, 1-2 in upsets, 1-2 in crap fests. Not doing great with those. 2-1 teams are 2-1 wear the jersey, and my picks are 2-1 in those games as well. Historically, in week 4, we are 57-35, which is pretty good. We are 5-0 in games of the week. We are 1-4 in upsets. We are 5-0 in crap fests. Teams are 1-2 when I wear their jersey, and my picks are 2-1. Our best ever week 4 is 10-6, and that was last year. That's something we can beat. That is a beatable goal. We can easily get a better week, a best of week 4 all time. Also, with last week, we have our betting totals. So we did not have a great week betting. We unfortunately did lose some money. Now, on strictly the money line bets, we took our $160 and went to $153. And so it looks like it's around that 10-11 win range. But we did really bad in our non-money line bets. I listened to my brother, and both of the bets that he had did not hit. So part of that was because of a safety by the Niners for some reason, which ruined the spread in that game. And then also there was the Cowboys looking way worse than we expected them to and not being able to get points. Now, CeeDee Lamb getting hurt did obviously help that, or hurt their ability to score. But still, it was disappointing that they could not put up the points there. So hopefully this week we're going to do better, and we are going to go back to the $5 bets rather than the 10 because we don't have 160 and I'm not adding any more. That's enough talking about last week. Let's get into the predictions for this week. First on our list, our Thursday night game is the Seahawks at the Cardinals. And I've been hating on the Cardinals all year so far. And the Seahawks defense especially has looked really good. Completed blowout against the Saints. That was not particularly close. Defense looked great. They had special teams plays that were big and all that. They didn't ask too much from the offense, so the offense didn't do too much. And they were able to get the win pretty easily. Arizona, on the other hand, they lost that heartbreaker to the Niners. Niners, once again, came into close with an inferior opponent. However, they did lose James Conner. He is now out for the season, and that's not a good look for him. He's now in his 30s, I believe. And a running back in his 30s, big injury like that does not spell a lot of success coming. Obviously, as someone who's been hating on the Cardinals all year so far, I'm picking the Seahawks. I think they are the better team. Their defense especially, and their offensive line has also been playing pretty well for them. So Seahawks should get this one. Our next game on our list is our Ireland game. I think that's the first one of those ever, if I remember correctly. But that is starring the Vikings at the Steelers. And we will be getting some Carson Wentz football for the second week in a row. And my, oh my, did the Vikings look spectacular last week against the Bengals. Not a close game at all. Vikings steamrolled over them very easily, whereas the Steelers were struggling with a not great Patriots team who gave them 5 turnovers, and they still only won by 1 touchdown. Vikings, I think, are the better team here, and now that they have Wentz at QB instead of McCarthy, at least for this week, we'll see how long that lasts. They should be able to go out there and get the win. I'm hot on them, and I hate McCarthy, so every win without him is beautiful to me. Next is the Titans at the Texans. This is our Jersey game of the week. I got the Texans jersey on. You know, Texans got beat by the Jags last week, so it's okay to throw a little Texans blue on. Also, I do, in fact, hate the Titans with a burning passion. Like I said, this is a Jersey game, and historically, the Titans are 3-1 in Jersey games. Texans are 1-2. And my picks are 0-4 when picking the Titans, and 2-1 when picking Jersey games with the Texans. So I historically get these games very, very wrong. So I want to change that because the Titans they've been against me for so long, and that needs to change. So hopefully the Texans are the team to do it. Both these teams 0-3 going into the matchup. Texans are much better than an 0-3 team. They just had a tough schedule to start the season, whereas Titans are just bad at the sport. So I think the Texans will be able to get this one, and I really, really, really hope they do. Next is the Eagles at the Buccaneers. This is our game of the week. Now, unfortunately, there's a bit of injury bug status going on with this one, but let's talk about historically how these teams have done in the game of the week. Eagles are 6-0, so they have been crushing it. Buccaneers are 0-2, so not a great look for them. My picks for the Eagles are 4-2. My picks for the Bucs are 1-1. I would love for a Buccaneers victory. We all know my thoughts on the Eagles. We all know my thoughts on the Buccaneers. Now, unfortunately, Mike Evans was injured in last week's game, and he will be out for like 3 to 4 weeks or something. Not great. Now, however, Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs are both potentially coming back this week, which would be a huge boost, especially to the offensive line that is super injured, and also Godwin coming back. And, you know, obviously losing Evans is tough, but Godwin coming back and taking his spot is a bit less of a step down than if they're both not there for this week. And obviously Igbuka's been carrying his own, so he's been a solid addition for sure this season easily. That being said, looking at the stats here, the Eagles are 6-0 in games of the week, and it's with the potential injury status up in the air. Baker's even bothered by something a little bit as well. I want to pick against the Eagles so bad, but I'm not going to. I'm picking the Eagles to win this. I'm going against my heart here, and I hope Baker proves me wrong. Okay? He's had a game-winning drive in the first 3 games this season, and I hope he does it again. But unfortunately, I am going with the Eagles. That's the smart pick. I gotta take my ego out of it. I gotta take my bias out of it when I'm making these picks. Sometimes, you know, I have enough bias picks later on that you gotta shake it out. Next is the Panthers at the Patriots. This is not a great matchup, and was close to being our crap fest of the week. Both these teams are 1-2, and not looking very good. Big win last week, though, for the Panthers over the Falcons looked absolutely awful. I don't know what the Panthers did to cause that to happen, but they didn't look like the worst team in the league. So big props to them. Patriots have been so close in all of their games so far, and I think against this inferior opponent they can change some of those mistakes that haven't been happening. They can go out and get this, because I also hate the Panthers. So I want them to lose. So I am picking the Patriots in this one. I think they are the better team. They're also at home. That should count for something. And the really only reason the Panthers won is because they played against the Falcons. Bryce Young is 3-1 versus the Falcons. So I think that comes into it a little bit for whatever reason. He just has their number. So they're not good. They're not coming back. They're still bad, and they will lose this game to the Patriots. Next is the Chargers at the Giants. Big news in this one. Jackson Dart getting his first start as an NFL QB. Russ Wilson benched in this one, and so interesting choice to throw Mr. Dart to the Wolves here. Chargers look like one of the best teams in the NFL so far. They're undefeated and against all divisional opponents, so that's a really tough thing to do. They just look good. Giants, on the other hand, are 0-3. They had a real tough one last week. They looked bad against the Chiefs. They weren't even able to put up the numbers like they did the previous week against the Cowboys. It just was a rough one, and I don't think that's going to change here. I think Dart's going to be lost in the sauce, and the Chargers going to eat him alive. So Chargers getting this one. Next is the Commanders at the Falcons. Commanders, not sure whether or not Jayden Daniels is going to be back yet for this week. However, they did put up 41 points without him last week with Mariota, so I don't think it's a huge difference. Also, the way the Falcons looked last week, yes, it was against the Panthers, and I talked about how the 3-1 thing for Bryce Young, but it is definitely discouraging to see how they looked, and they did not look good at all. Their offense is struggling a lot. Their defense played fine, but Washington's a good team. They got a lot of good players on it, and I don't think it should be close. I think Washington should be able to get this one fairly easily. Next is the Saints at the Bills. This one's not going to be close. Not going to say much about this one. We all know the Bills are the better team here. I think they're the best team in the league so far, and they have done nothing to make me think otherwise. So Bills, I think, are getting this one against the Saints. Not a whole lot to talk about here. Next is the Browns at the Lions. Browns, like I said, with their big upset last week in our Jersey game. Lions with a big win in the game of the week against the Ravens. They're looking pretty good. It'll be interesting to see how this defense does against them, because the Browns defense is looking like the top defense in the league potentially. Obviously, they got a bit beaten by the Ravens, but week 1 and week 3, they've looked fantastic, and the metrics agree with it as well. And the Lions, when they went against the Packers defense, which is pretty good, they did not look superb. So I think this is going to be a lot closer than people expect. But the Lions should definitely still go out there and get this one. But I would love an upset here, because it would make my friend who's a Lions fan sad, and I could talk shit. So, next is the Colts at the Rams. Colts have obviously had a very exciting season, a very unexpected season so far for them, but this is their first, I was going to say first real opponent, but theoretically the Broncos are. I think this is their first complete opponent. The Rams have looked pretty good so far. They almost beat the Eagles last week. They should have, and I don't think they're going to let a situation like that happen again. I think we are going to see some aggression from Jones here. Now, I do think it still can be a pretty good game, but I do think the home team here, Los Angeles, should be able to get this one. Next, we have our upset of the week. I talked about earlier how I need to take some bias out of things, but here's the thing. It's the Jaguars at the Niners. Now, Niners, historically, kick the Jags' booty. And in upsets, the Jags are actually 1-3, so they have won these before, and the Niners are only 2-2. My picks for both of them are 1-3, so nothing spectacular on either side. But that means someone's got to give here, and I'm hoping it's the Jags. And a big part of that is the Niners have everybody on their injury report. They're not even sure which quarterback's going to play this week. Jones hurt himself at the end of the Cardinals game, and Brock's coming back from his injury, so even if he comes back, is he going to be 100%? Jawan Jennings and Ricky both showing up on that spot as well, and Ayuk's not close to coming back yet. So a lot of injury going on with there. McCaffrey seems to be one of the only healthy ones, which is a big surprise. Kittle still out. Nick Bosa out for the year. Just a lot of guys all over the place on that injury report. And the Jags don't really have a ton. De'Ami Brown's still in with something a little bit. Guards are a little banged up, but they're still all expected to play. So they should be mostly healthy. And I think after BTJ's big catch last week to secure the victory, Jags should be able to go out there and win, get his confidence back up. Guys just got to catch the football. They're still having the drop problem, but they won last week with the drop problem. I think this week, if they can get a handle on the drop problem, they should be able to win this kind of easily. Once again, a bit of bias thrown in there, but I'm going Jags in this one, and I think they can actually do it. Next is the Bears at the Raiders. Bears had a big win last week, their first on the season against the Cowboys. Granted, the Cowboys probably have the worst defense in the league. The Raiders, they got beat last week pretty badly by the Washingtons, but they already do have a win on their season. They got that week 1 victory against the Patriots, and they've had a tough schedule the rest of the games. The Washington and Los Angeles Chargers, both solid opponents. I think the Bears are going to go back down this week. I think after they face a better team, even though I wouldn't say that the Raiders' defense is anything spectacular, it does have guys like Max Crosby on it that could wreck your day. So I think the Raiders in Vegas at home here should be able to get this one against the Bears. Next is the Ravens at the Chiefs. This should probably be a game of the week, except for the fact that both these teams are 1-2. A little stinky start to the season, and they've both had games when they've just not looked good. Ravens defense is especially bad. I mentioned the Henry fumbling problem earlier. Chiefs are expected to probably have Xavier Worthy back this week, which is a big look for them. But I also just don't think they look great. And I think they're just going to end up being struggling in that division potentially. And the Ravens, on the other hand, I think they can win this one. I'm going with them. It's not a great pick. Chiefs have already lost at Arrowhead once. I think they can do it again. And the rest of their offense, has not looked great anyway. So it might look a little better this week against that Ravens defense. But I think the Ravens can be able to put up some numbers like they have been offensively. And just if they hold on to the ball and Hunter doesn't have his fumbling issues, I think they should win this one. Next is the Packers at the Cowboys. Cowboys looked bad last week, and the Packers offense struggled. Now, this is probably the worst defense in the league, so the Packers should turn that around for sure. And also, we have the homecoming of Micah Parsons going back to Dallas. I'd expect him to wreck things and not make this a game at all. I'm going with the Packers easily in this one. Next is the Jets at the Dolphins. Jets looked not bad. They had a close one against the Buccaneers. Bit of a comeback there to almost take the victory away thanks to Tyrod Taylor. A lot of struggles with the drops problem for them, though. And this is also our crap fest of the week. And the part of that is because it's a Monday night game. Having these two teams go together on a Monday night is just gross football to force the entire country to watch. And we know they're going to watch it because it's football. Jets in Crabfest are 5-6, and the Dolphins are 6-5. So 11 games each for these teams in Crabfest tells you how these franchises have been doing over the years. My picks are 7-4 when it comes to the Jets, and 9-2 when it comes to the Dolphins. Kind of know what goes on with these games. And here's the thing. We don't know yet if Fields is going to be back from concussion protocol this week and able to start it. Now, he does have that extra day because it is a Monday night game, but we're still not sure if he's going to be there. They're expecting him to, as long as he clears concussion protocol. I think the Jets are a better team, and I think especially even if Fields starts the game, I think there's a chance that he gets told to sit down, whether it's because of injury or just because they think Tyrod gives them the better chance to win. I think that's a potential happening. So I am going to go with the Jets, and the Dolphins really are just a mess of a franchise at the moment. And finally, our last game is the Bengals at the Broncos. This is an orange matchup, it looks like here. Bengals looked absolutely horrendous last week. 38-point loss to the Vikings. Broncos had a close one against the Chargers. Their defense is still playing well. It probably had its best game, I would say. Well, it was against a good opponent, and they played well. Obviously, they didn't get the win at the end, but that's because they're going up against MVP Herbert. But I think the Broncos should be able to stomp on the Bengals, and they're going to get in the backfield and make a mess of things there. So Broncos should be able to get this one, and it should be an easy one for them, too. This could be a nice get-right game for them. That's all for this week's predictions. I'm feeling a little all over the place. I don't know if you noticed or not, but that's all we've got. Good stuff. Make sure to come back next week. And maybe if you feel like it, drop a little like on the video. If you made it all the way through, you probably liked it, so you should drop a like. But that's all. I'll see you next week.